Here we go then, let's get on with exposure. So go to the first stanza. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stanzas. And I want you to go to the first one. And I want you to really consider two things here. The pronoun our means that Owen is speaking on behalf of a community of soldiers. So he's speaking on behalf of the soldiers and himself. Okay, so that's really important. It's speaking on behalf of a whole community of people suffering. And the next phrase, our brains ache. So I don't know if you've ever experienced being out in the cold. Maybe you've been skiing or you are in a very cold country. I used to live in one of the coldest states next to Alaska, and I know that feeling of like being so cold that it feels like your head's cracking. And so we've got this our brains ache, that the soldiers are experiencing such severe cold that it feels like their brains are hurting. But again, when we're thinking of poetry, we always want to pull this out as far as possible. So don't just think of one explanation. Our brains ache could also be talking about the internal conflict that's going on, the mental torture that they're in. Their brains are hurting because there is so much mental torture going on. And it can refer, of course, to the shell shock. So, if you want to get into more details, you can look up shell shock to give you more background information. But that's how we go into this poem, Our Brains Ache. So my soldiers and I are experiencing internal anguish, turmoil, and it's freezing cold. And that's, complete contrast to what people think is going on at home. 21-year-old man is saying this is what it's really like. Then we have this expression, in the merciless, iced east winds that knife us. So you can hear the sibilance there, can't you? You can hear that hissing sound. And this sibilance is carried on throughout the poem, and it allows the reader to experience shivering, like shivering so cold, and the serpent-like quality of the snow, that it's, as it gets personified, it's, swiftly moving around them and attacking. So that's successive sibilance, repetition of the sound, gets the atmosphere across and gets the reader to experience this sense of mental torture. Now, I like all my students to practice writing frames. So think about how you could write that in a phrase. That Owen uses the technique of sibilance to create the impression of what? And then use your own words. And the effect that it has on the reader is what? And the reader is made to feel what? So that's what you want to do, is you want to get in here straight away so that your A3 book has writing frames in it that you are practiced in, so that when you go into the exam, not only with your power and conflict, but when you also go into your unseen poetry, you have those phrases to hand. You're not just like stuck. You have a whole bank of things that you've got used to doing. Okay, so we've got our brains ache, in the merciless ice east winds that knife us. Wearied, we keep awake because the night is silent. Load, so they can't go to sleep. They have to keep awake because the silence is, it could mean something's about to happen. So that immediately, in 2 lines, we've got this picture of someone in mental torture, the iced wind's getting to them, and they're having to stay awake because there could be something happening at any minute. Okay, then we've got and wearied we keep awake because the night is silent. That isn't something that trips off the tongue. And what Owen is doing when we read this out, you realise how difficult it is to read. That's what he wants. He wants you to experience difficulty, that this isn't a fluffy poem. This is, by all accounts, bloody hard work. So it's hard for us to, let it trip off the tongue. It's difficult to read. That's what he wants. Then we've got low drooping flares confuse our memory of the salient. Worried by silence, sentries whisper, curious, nervous, but nothing happens. So talking about being worried, whispering to each other, curious about what's going to happen, and nervous and wearied and having to keep awake. There you have a whole creative image of what it's like to be in the trenches at that time. And then the final line, but nothing happens. So all this emotional turmoil they're going through, waiting for something to happen, and then it doesn't. So it's torture. Now the next thing is, so we've looked at some of the alliteration, and when you get those lines, look at how difficult they are to say. And then I want you to look at the end of each line. So look at the first 3 lines in that first stanza. They all end with ellipses, and ellipses are used to impress that there is a pause. There is a pause. There is a pause. So it allows you to understand ellipses, but Google how ellipses is used in poetry. But those first 3 lines are all about waiting, waiting, waiting with the ellipses. So that's a really good way that the punctuation is used. And then we have the last part I want to put across here is the half rhyme. So nervous, silent, salient, nervous. So the rhyming scheme should be A, B, B, A. So it should be nervous should rhyme with nervous, silent should rhyme with salient, but it doesn't, does it? It doesn't quite rhyme. And that's Owen wanting us to feel again the difficulty, that this is not an easy experience. This is a difficult experience that him, through the power of his amazing poetry, is allowing us to get to understand that this is a very traumatic, difficult experience. So that's part 2. Half rhyme, done deliberately. Sibilance, sinister, serpent-like. Nature being personified, it's coming up. And the brain ache, the mental torture, keeping awake, nervous, worried, curious, and then nothing happens. Okay, so that's the next part.